Caroline Leavitt wasn't supposed to stand a chance. They'd invited her onto the show expecting an easy target, a quick takedown that would leave their audience nodding in agreement. Grayson Holt, the host, was a master of his craft. His entire brand was built on sharp comebacks and viral moments that left his guests floundering. Sitting in his sleek chair, he radiated the kind of confidence that came from years of making people squirm on live television. Across from him, Caroline sat calm, her hands resting lightly on the table. She had been in situations like this before. She knew exactly how this worked. Grayson leaned back, his fingers tapping idly against the armrest. He flashed a knowing smile at his panel before turning his attention back to her. "Caroline, let's not waste time," he said, drawing out her name like a teacher indulging a student who had just made a mistake. "You're young, ambitious, and for some reason, you've hitched your wagon to the Republican Party, a group better known for clinging to the past than embracing the future. So tell me, are you here to defend outdated policies, or is this just your audition tape for Fox News?" The panelists chuckled. A few leaned forward in anticipation, eager to watch another conservative stumble under the heat of Grayson's questioning. But Caroline didn't flinch. She didn't rush to defend herself. Instead, she waited, patient, letting the moment stretch. Grayson took her silence as an opening. "Let's be real," he continued, shifting in his seat as if settling in for a long discussion. "The GOP loves to put people like you in front of the cameras. Fresh faces, polished speeches, a new coat of paint on the same tired policies. But at the end of the day, it's all the same script: tax cuts, personal responsibility, some fantasy about returning to the so-called good old days. The real question is, do you actually believe it, or are you just playing along?" The camera zoomed in, capturing the satisfied smirks of the panelists. They had seen this before. They knew how this game ended. Caroline tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable. She was in no rush to respond. Grayson, mistaking her patience for hesitation, pushed forward. "Caroline, I'll give you credit. You sound confident. But let's not pretend here. The party you're defending is the same one that would rather see women in the kitchen than in Congress." The panel burst into laughter. Even the camera crew let out a few quiet chuckles. It was the kind of moment that made good television. Caroline didn't react. No anger. No shift in her expression. That was when Grayson began to notice something was off. Still, he assumed she was just trying to keep up appearances. "And tell me honestly," he continued, feigning curiosity, "do you truly believe in everything you're saying, or is this just a career move? Say the right things, keep the donors happy, and maybe, just maybe, secure a comfortable media gig when the whole thing falls apart?" One of the panelists, a journalist from a left-leaning outlet, jumped in. "The Republican Party does this all the time," she said, shaking her head. "They find someone young, marketable, and willing to sell the same old message in a fresh package. Caroline, do you ever stop and wonder if they're just using you?" The laughter grew louder. The attack was coming in waves now, perfectly timed. Grayson saw the opportunity to land the final blow. "Think about it," he said, voice steady, confident. "You're defending a party that fights against diversity efforts while propping you up as their modern, inclusive face. Do you not see the contradiction? Or are you just trained to ignore it?" The panelist next to him smirked. "Careful, Grayson. Maybe she actually believes all of this." Grayson grinned. He knew he had her. Or at least, he thought he did. He was about to realize just how wrong he was. The cameras are rolling. The audience is waiting. Every viewer at home is watching closely, expecting the inevitable misstep. But Caroline Leavitt doesn't falter. Instead, she adjusts her posture, shifts slightly in her chair, and lets the room settle. The laughter fades on its own. 2 full seconds of silence. And just like that, the energy changes. The moment belongs to her now. She exhales, tilts her head just slightly, and speaks. "Are you finished?" Grayson Holt blinks. It's a subtle reaction, but in that instant, the balance of power shifts. Only, no one realizes it yet. The laughter dies down quicker than Grayson expected. Moments ago, he had been sure he had her cornered. The audience had laughed at his jabs. The panel had backed him up. Yet now, something feels off. It's as if he's suddenly lost control of the room. Caroline leans forward just slightly, her hands still resting on the table. There's no anger in her expression, no sign of nerves, just certainty. She repeats, voice steady, "Are you finished?" Grayson forces a chuckle, shaking his head. "Oh, Caroline, don't get all dramatic. It's just, no, really," she cuts in. Her voice is too calm. "It's unsettling. Are you finished? Because I want to make sure you've gotten all your little rehearsed jabs out before I respond." The air in the room tightens. Grayson's smirk falters, just for a fraction of a second. The panelists shift in their seats. The camera crew, sensing something real unfolding, goes still. This wasn't the show they were expecting. Caroline tilts her head slightly. No smile, no frown, just watching. Then, finally, she speaks. "See, Grayson, this is what you do. You set people up with smug little sound bites, get your panel to laugh, and count on your guests to either stumble, get defensive, or shrink. And most of the time it works." She pauses for just a beat. "But here's the problem. You didn't do your homework on me." Grayson lets out a dry chuckle. "Oh, believe me, Caroline, no, you didn't." She interrupts. Clean, sharp, unshaken. "Because if you had, you'd know I don't fold. And I certainly don't let people like you define me." The silence in the room is absolute. Grayson straightens slightly in his chair, but for the first time tonight, he's no longer in control. Caroline's voice cuts through the tension, clear and deliberate. "You call me a token, a puppet. You act like I have no agency, no original thoughts, that I'm just here to repeat talking points. But the irony? You're the one sticking to a script." A sharp pause. She doesn't let him breathe. "You came in with the same tired attacks, the same predictable insults, because that's all you know how to do. Mock, dismiss, belittle. That's your entire playbook." She leans in slightly. "And yet, I'm the one who's supposed to lack originality?" Grayson doesn't respond. He doesn't even try. Caroline continues. "You sit here and pretend you care about women having a voice, but the second one speaks up in a way that doesn't fit your narrative, you mock her. You say young people should be engaged in politics, but if they don't read straight from your script, you try to discredit them. You talk about progress, but the second someone challenges you, you fall right back into the same condescending routine." Finally, she leans back. This time, she does smile, but it's not friendly. "You don't want a conversation, Grayson. You want a punching bag, and I'm not here to be one." Grayson blinks. The panelists glance at each other. One of them clears their throat, shifting uncomfortably. The air in the room has changed completely. For the first time in his career, Grayson Holt has nothing to say. The silence isn't just awkward, it's heavy. His jaw tightens, but he forces a chuckle, shaking his head as if he still has control. "Wow, Caroline, that was quite the little speech. Did you practice that in the mirror this morning?" A weak attempt at regaining dominance, but it falls flat. The panelists aren't laughing this time. One of them shifts in their seat, glancing toward the camera crew, as if silently asking, "Are we still live?" Caroline doesn't flinch. Her confidence doesn't waver. She just watches. Then, without warning, the show cuts to commercial. Not because it was planned, not because the segment wrapped up naturally, but because someone in the control room panicked. And the moment the screen goes dark, Twitter explodes. Clips of the exchange spread like wildfire. Caroline Leavitt just did the impossible. She didn't just hold her own against Grayson Holt. She shut him down completely. Live. On air. They had to cut to commercial. Not as a transition. Not as a routine break. Out of pure panic. And now, the internet is on fire. The clip spreads at an unstoppable pace, racking up millions of views in hours. Even people who don't follow politics are watching. It's everywhere. Twitter, TikTok, news sites, group chats. Liberal commentators scramble. Some try to spin it. Grayson was just being gracious, letting her speak. Others dismiss it as just another conservative playing the victim. But none of it sticks, because the video tells the story on its own. And then, the fallout begins. For Grayson, the network's inbox floods with messages. Viewers demand answers. Ratings for the segment? Massive. But the engagement is brutal. The conversation isn't about how sharp Grayson was. It's about how he lost control. His own audience, people who usually back him up, start whispering doubts. Did he actually get outplayed? Why didn't he fire back? And most importantly, why did they cut to commercial so fast? The panelists who laughed along with him earlier, they start pulling away. One, a journalist from a major progressive outlet, tweets, "Let's be honest, Grayson wasn't ready for that moment." Cutting to commercial only made it worse. Translation? He choked. And Grayson knows it. Now, he has a choice. Double down, or try to save face. But either way, the damage is already done. He's been in tough spots before. Controversy? That's part of the job. But this feels different. By the time the show ends, his phone is blowing up. Producers, network execs, PR handlers, everyone is scrambling. He scrolls through Twitter. Everywhere he looks, his own face, frozen in stunned silence. The memes are ruthless. Grayson Holt.exe has stopped working. Smug mode, OFF. The exact second he realized she wasn't playing defense. Before he even leaves the studio, the headline is already set. Grayson Holt humiliated on live TV. He slams his phone down. This isn't just embarrassing. This is dangerous. His producer calls. "We need a statement." Media Crisis Management 101. Control the narrative. The spin? Grayson was being respectful, giving Caroline a chance to share her views. Minutes later, his PR team tweets from his account. "Great conversation with Caroline Leavitt tonight. We may not agree, but discussions like these are important for democracy. Looking forward to more debates." Nobody buys it. The replies? Brutal. "Bro, you got cooked. Just take the L." This is the PR equivalent of pretending you meant to trip on stage. Why are you acting like this was a friendly chat? She torched you. Worse, the network isn't happy. Not because of the controversy, because of how bad he looked. An emergency meeting is called. They discuss changes. A new panel format. More control over segments. A plan to prevent another disaster like this. Then, a leak. An internal email from a producer. "We should have cut to commercial sooner." This was a disaster. It spreads online within minutes. And just like that, the truth is out. The commercial break wasn't part of the show. It was an emergency exit. Grayson was losing so badly. They pulled the plug. And now? That's the story. Meanwhile, Caroline? She says nothing. No gloating. No interviews. No press tour. Just a single post. Let people say what they want. The truth speaks for itself. The simplicity makes it hit even harder. And by morning, Grayson Holt isn't just trending. He's unraveling. His face is on every news show, every late-night segment. Political commentators, both left and right, pick apart what happened. Some try to defend him. It wasn't that bad. He just let her talk too much. Others? They don't hold back. This is what happens when you stop debating and start relying on cheap takedowns. And then, the real punch lands. Late-night comedy. One show freezes on his stunned face. Folks, this is the face of a man watching his entire career collapse in real time. The audience erupts. Grayson's usual defenders try to spin it, but they get buried. By memes, by comments, by reality. Caroline didn't just win a debate. She became the moment. Conservative media calls it one of the most devastating takedowns in TV history. Clips of her response flood every platform. And for the first time, Grayson Holt isn't the one controlling the narrative. Something bigger is happening. Caroline Leavitt isn't just a young conservative anymore. She's not just another guest on a political panel. She's the woman who walked into enemy territory and walked out untouchable. And now, everything is changing. The invitations start rolling in. Major networks want interviews. Conference organizers want her on stage. Her name is suddenly everywhere. There's even talk of a book deal. The same people who once dismissed her, now they can't ignore her. And Grayson? For the first time in his career, he isn't controlling the conversation. He is the conversation. And not in a good way. His show's ratings are up, but for all the wrong reasons. People aren't tuning in because they support him. They're tuning in to see if he'll fail again. The network is worried. Executives call an emergency meeting. A senior producer, One of Grayson's biggest allies suddenly resigns. It's not labeled as fallout, but everyone knows what it is. Grayson Holt has lost his invincibility. And Caroline? She's just getting started. But the real impact? That's still coming. Some viral moments disappear overnight. This one doesn't. Days pass, and the clip keeps circulating. Because this wasn't just a heated debate. It struck a nerve. People on both sides of the political divide feel it. Some take it as a warning. Never underestimate your opponent. Others see it as proof. Authenticity beats arrogance. But one thing is clear. This wasn't just a moment. It was a turning point. For years, Grayson Holt built his career on control. He didn't debate. He performed. He didn't engage in discussions. He humiliated. And it worked, until it didn't. His loss wasn't just about losing a debate. It was about losing the illusion. People saw, in real time, what happens when someone who always has the upper hand loses it. And once that happens, the magic is gone. Caroline Leavitt didn't win because she talked over him. She didn't win because she threw better insults. She won because she never broke. She didn't scramble to explain herself. She didn't react. She took control. She flipped the script and made him play her game. That's why it mattered. Grayson Holt will keep his career, but it won't be the same. That effortless confidence, it won't land the same way anymore. His audience saw him struggle. His critics saw him exposed. And Caroline? She turned a moment into momentum. She turned mockery into a movement. And here's the real takeaway. We all face moments like this. Maybe not in front of millions. Maybe not on live TV. But at some point, we all get tested. We all face people who try to belittle us, who expect us to fold. And in those moments, you have a choice. Do you let them define you? Or do you take the moment and make it yours? That's the real lesson. What do you think? Was this a calculated takedown? Or just pure confidence in action? And what does this say about modern media? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk. And if you want more stories like this, you know what to do. Subscribe. Because trust me, there's so much more to uncover.